The Texans' most criticized unit last year is saying all the things that you'd want to hear from them. But do you buy them? The latest on Joe Mixon from D'Amico Ryans and Nick Caserio. And the Dallas Cowboys, for better or worse, remain the Dallas Cowboys. I'm Paul Gallant, and this is the Gallant Says podcast. Hit it!
A radio show host in Seattle called Paul Gallant.
Paul Gallant's wondering the same things a lot of people wonder.
You are definitely living in the hindsight world today, Paul.
Do you feel there's been a consistent theme with the interceptions?
I think every interception really has a different story.
I was just kind of curious what Paul gets to see.
Paul Gallant, what the hell is wrong with you?
Hello and welcome aboard the Gallant Says podcast. It is Thursday evening, August 28th, live on YouTube at Paul Gallant. Please like the video, subscribe if you so choose. You can also join this show live on Twitch. Give me a sub at Gallant Says, on X and Twitter at Gallant Says as well, on Instagram at Sports Gallant, and on Facebook at Paul Gallant Sports. We're still trying to figure out what time to do the show. But I'll tell you this, it will be available after the fact, wherever you get your podcasts, on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. If you want to cut me off mid-thought on the YouTube side of things, super chat me, and I'll play this.
Paul, stop talking. Listen.
I won't play those both at the same time, but I will play Wade Smith telling me to stop talking. And then I will stop talking, and I will answer you right away. But you have to pay me like the little talking head whore that I am. Last year, the Houston Texans offensive line wasn't good, and that's putting it politely. But for better or worse, the most famous or infamous member of the 2024 line is saying all the right things, both when it comes to hyping you up for this season and when it comes to blaming someone for last year. DJ Bieneme, my guy, for ESPN.com, wrote an article about the Texans. In said article, this quote from Texans right tackle Titus Howard really jumped out. He was asked about essentially some of the differences between this year and last year. And he said this, quote, "The biggest difference is our mentality. This type of offense fits a lot of guys that we have in the room. Being able to start the game off strong as an offensive line and be able to finish games, also running the ball and then using the run game to open up the pass game. Not coming out getting fucking negative yards on outside zone run plays, stuff that didn't really fit us." Whoa! Titus Howard from the top rope. DJ backed that quote up with stats talking about the outside runs, and we also know with Bobby Slowick's offense, there were a lot of screens, and they generally were Chernobyls, which is to say disasters. 248 carries by the Texans to the outside last year. Per next-gen stats, it was the 12th most in the league, but over a fifth of those runs resulted in no gain or a loss. Also, per players behind the scenes, DJ Bieneme writing this article, a few players on the offensive line asked for more gap scheme running plays where backs can get downhill between the guards instead of outside the guards and tackles, with the belief it would be a better fit and could catch teams off guard. Ultimately, that request wasn't fulfilled into the playoffs, and then in those two games, the Texans totaled 317 yards on the ground. That's pretty impressive. So they were asking for something. Bobby Slowick didn't give it to them until he eventually did. And it seemed to work to a degree, even with the Texans' passing game being limited, given it was just C.J. Stroud and Nico Collins. Titus Howard saying those things, I mean, that is 100% a shot, a snipe, because he didn't mention him by name. at Bobby Slowick and at last year's offensive line coach, Chris Strausser. And we've been hearing a lot of this from Titus Howard this offseason, with now Nick Caley running the offense and Bobby Slowick out of the way. Titus Howard at his press conference on July 24th had this to say about the Texans' offensive line and specifically the scheme that they are now operating in. Here is Titus Howard.
I know it's big too, so like being coached by Cole and being coached now by Nick, like what are you feeling most impacted by early on? I mean, the new scheme, is it like really simple comparatively to last year, or Nick or Cole just telling you where to put your hands and like a small stuff?
The scheme is a lot more simple. I was in this scheme a little bit when I first came into the league, but it's really just, I think the biggest thing with Nick and Cole is the mindset. Like, you know, our mindset last year wasn't like it is this year. Like, our mindset now is we got to get downhill. We got to get on guys early and move them. And that's something that we struggle with on the offensive line as a pass, is getting the run game going. Because you get the run game going, the pass game going to get going. You know, so we got to be able to establish that run early. And they just been attacking the details of the run game of getting double teams a lot. We're going to be doing a lot of double teams. So we're just working on those fundamentals every day and trying to get better.
So he said the scheme is simpler and that the attitude is different in said scheme where they're attacking a little bit more. I like hearing all of those things. The scheme is something he's more familiar with, so that goes back to his time with Bill O'Brien running the show. Okay, it's simpler. Great. It's simultaneously, per Titus Howard, more demanding. In that same press conference, he also had this to say about the line. Here is the Texans' right tackle.
What's your experience been like with Cole in this new leadership role? Obviously, you were with him last season. Like, kind of what's his style now moving into this new role?
I say the number one thing is just more demanding. I say we let some stuff get by last year that wasn't good enough, but one thing about Cole, he's demanding, and he's going to treat everybody and coach everybody the same way. And I think that's one of the biggest things in having a great offensive line coach. And I just know that his mentality rubs off on us every day because he's not going to settle for less.
A lot of good things said there, but also little mini shots taken at the last offensive line coach, at the last offensive coordinator. They're asking us to do more. They're treating everybody the same. I mean, I like hearing all of these things, but this scheme is simultaneously simpler and more demanding. Doesn't exactly sound like it adds up, no? Seems like that's going to be difficult for all of those things to piece together. But that's what we're hearing from Titus Howard, both in an article from DJ Bien-Aimé that was on ESPN.com. I encourage you to check it out. My friend does a good job. And on top of that, what he had to say, Titus Howard specifically, earlier this training camp about the new scheme the offensive line is operating in. For better or for worse, you're saying all the right things. Let's answer some of your questions. Avi Lieberman, comedy on Instagram at Sports Gallant. If you all haven't liked me on Instagram or follow, is it follow? If you haven't followed me on Instagram already, how else would you see clips from this show and my radio show, noon to 3, ESPN 97.5, 92.5? With the current struggles of Cam Smith, do you regret Houthi member Kyle Tucker being gone? I know it's just baseball, but I wanted to know. Avi jokes often about Kyle Tucker potentially being a Houthi. Look, Cam Smith hit a home run in last night's game. Cam Smith is like, what, 22? He's at the major league level, playing in the longest season he's ever played in, and he's run into a bit of a wall. I think this wall is going to continue the rest of the year. I think the Astros would probably be better suited if they were to, I don't know, move him to the side, but that's going to require some more guys returning from injury and not another update like we saw today where Yainer Diaz is dealing with some sort of hand issue that makes it painful whenever he swings the bat. Avi also asks, do you think Nick Chubb will compensate enough currently? That is a tough question to answer. If you were watching Chubb at training camp, he did look a little bit slower than what I expected. But you also have to remember that in training camp, it's really difficult to gauge what running backs are doing out there. I say that because you're encouraged to not bring guys all the way down to the ground. And Nick Chubb is one of those running backs who likes to run through contact and keep on running and keep on running. And I think some people that were covering Texans training camp had some fun at Chubb's expense from this perspective. Chubb regularly would run about 40, 50 yards after it seemed like he was down. And people in the crowd loved it. But if you've seen enough training camp, you're like, what's this? That said, preseason game number 2 for the Texans. I mean, I thought he looked pretty good in limited work against the Panthers. So my long way of getting around the question, coming back to the question, I don't know. I wouldn't draft him in my fantasy football league, that's for sure. We'll talk about Joe Mixon in just a moment. Slow TX 500 says on the gram, once again, the Texans have a quarterback with an absolute cannon, and they can't protect him. We will see. Can't be any worse than last year, you would think. Texans ownership's getting a little chesty, too. In this article from DJ Bieneme, DJ highlighted some of the things that Cal McNair, Hannah McNair had to say. Cal McNair said of the Texans going into 2025, we hope to see us get a little better this year. Hannah McNair, to his side, as always, put some sprinkles on top and a cherry, grinned and swiftly interjected. A subtle 3-word haymaker, per DJ Bieneme. A lot better.
It's football time in Houston, and we're ready to play.
But Hannah's not fucking playing. She ain't playing at all. Hannah also weighed in on some of the things that took place in Texans Chiefs, looking back, talking specifically about some of the penalties that everyone got their panties in a wad about. But those types of calls, if it goes the other way, we're winning that game, in my opinion. We had them on the other side of the field, and multiple times you would have penalties. We got to clean that up. But it took them to the other side of the 50. We got to clean that up. We're pretty close. I don't like setting expectations for this Texans team going into next year as a lot better. I think that they had took a step back last season. I don't know how forward the big step can be this coming year. I don't know how much of a step they can take. I think you're asking a lot for them to take the kind of step that's going to put them on the same level as the top teams in the AFC. The Chiefs still are, as are the Bills, as are the Ravens. Ravens keep on kicking their ass. They've played it close against the Chiefs. They were lucky to win that game against the Bills last year. Josh Allen played one of the worst games of his career. And sure, the Texans defense deserve credit for how they've played against some of the best quarterbacks in the game. But how much better can it get than it was last year, where it was, I think, 6th ranked in the league? Is it going to be 3rd best, 2nd best, or something like that? That is the hope. And if it is, awesome. You got Derek Stingley. You got Kamari Lassiter going into year 2. You got Kalen Balak going into year 2. You add C.J. Gardner-Johnson, who's apparently not out for the year. The secondary looks good. Azeez Al-Shaair. Christian Harris is back. Seems like you upgraded in the linebacker side of things. You got a lot of defenders. But what happens this coming season, I think, is more going to be determined by the defense than it is the offense. The offense, you got a bunch of new receivers. You got a brand new offensive line. You got a new offensive coordinator. And you don't have your starting running back from last season who was making things happen despite an offensive line in front of him who wasn't doing a fucking thing, you know? Hopefully the new scheme helps them do things, but you're asking a lot out of a lot of new, and to assume it's all going to be better right out of the chute, that's naive. It could get better. I'm not ruling that out. It's going to take time, in my opinion. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Great. I hope I'm wrong. But I am approaching this season with a patience and not with a level of expectation that I had last year. Abby Lieberman asks, did the line look better this year in the preseason compared to last from what you saw? Wasn't out at training camp as much as I would like to be. I felt there were certainly some growing pains on the offensive line side of things. There's a lot of excitement about Tay Ursary starting at left tackle. I'm excited about that. Clearly, this rookie guy came in, and Cam Robinson was banged up for a little bit, but he stepped in, and they had him at left tackle right away because they liked the versatility that he brought to the table. So that is certainly intriguing as far as what this offense could be. But, from a preseason game perspective, the issue is not so much the technique, which I could not tell you much about. I consider myself a football expert, and I feel like I know what's good and what's bad when it comes to offensive line blocking, but I'm not one of those ex-Texans offensive linemen like a Chris Myers or a Wade Smith who could explain things to people. You know, I can't do that. What I do know, though, is that whatever they were going up against in these preseason games or against in these joint practices where teams were in regular season mode but also so paranoid that teams are going to steal information from them that they're not throwing the most exotic things out there, the real question is, can this Texans offensive line, when it's going up against a team that's running stunts and stuff like that, can they fucking pick it up? That's on C.J. Stroud, who has now more ownership at the line of scrimmage. We've been hearing a lot about that. That's on Jake Andrews, the starting center. That's new for the Texans. He's first time here. And the entire new configuration on the offensive line. Like, it's entirely new. Titus Howard at right tackle, but it's Ed Ingram at right guard. It's Jake Andrews at center. At left guard, it's Ladarius. Laken Tomlinson. I always confuse Ladarius with Laken. Ladarius Henderson, I think, is on the practice squad. I forget. Laken Tomlinson. And then at left tackle, you got Ariante Ursary. I mean, 4 out of 5 guys are new. And they might have a better attitude than before, and they also seem to have better coaching than before. But, I mean, it's going to take time for the offense to, I think, get to a level where we want it to be. Just a lot of moving parts. The good news is 17-game season. Lots of things can happen over the course of a season. And it's really not about how you play to open up the year. It's all about how you finish the year. Because remember, the Texans started 5-1 last season. And then what were they the rest of the way? They were 5. Doing a little math here. 5-6 the rest of the regular season. And then you had a little more 1-1. So they were 6-7 the rest of the way if you count the playoff win over the Chargers and then the playoff loss to the Chiefs. More comments here. PG says, I'm ready for some Texans football, as am I.
It's football time in Houston, and we're ready to play.
Sampson says there's so many unknowns this year with the offensive line, running backs, and if CJ is really going to shake off last year's fog. I think CJ said it best on an interview yesterday when he said it's time to stop talking, put it on tape and on the field. I totally agree. Avi Lieberman asks about Isaac Paredes on the baseball side of things. Thank you for calling me the greatest baseball mind in Houston. I hope everyone knows that when I say that I'm joking, but I do not think Hader will be back, and I do not think Paredes will be back. I see a lot of optimism that Paredes could be back, but if I'm the Astros and I've got these fucking Kevorkians that are operating on these guys, I'm not even sure if that term's correct, but just go with me here. Like, I am not pressing my luck. If I'm Dana Brown, I'm Joe Espada with these fucking people. Like, I just do not trust them at all. Devon Daniels asks YouTube, so saying maybe game 6 the offense should be where we want. That's the hope, but it might be later than that. I'm hoping for late November. By late November, can they have Joe Mixon back? Can they have a running game that can complement C.J. Stroud and give this offensive line the ability to do what it clearly wants to do? Titus Howard wants to go forward. He doesn't want to be dropping back. He wants them all people, which does seem surprising because I think a lot of people's perception of the Texans offensive line this offseason and going into this one was it's a lot of pretty boys and stuff. Rick Hagwood says Cole Popovich has these guys playing mean. That is also the hope. So, the Texans are showing a little bit of attitude, and that attitude is continuing with the way that they are talking to us, the liberal media, about Joe Mixon. What a transition, Paul. That is why they pay you the big bucks. If you watched my live stream yesterday morning, you saw me lay out the Texans' timeline of Joe Mixon's injured foot or ankle and how over a couple of months, we haven't heard a fucking peep about what's going on down there. We don't know which foot. We don't know which ankle. We don't know if it's a foot or an ankle. We don't know how long Joe Mixon's going to be out. We don't know what even happened to Joe Mixon. We'd like answers. Do we deserve those answers? That's up for debate. Yesterday, we heard more about Joe Mixon's injury, kind of, I'm winking as I say that, from both Nick Caserio and D'Amico Ryans. Let's take a listen to what Nick Caserio had to say when he was asked the third question of the press conference, by the way, about what's going on with Joe Mixon. Here's the GM of the Houston Texans.
With Mixon, or did y'all anticipate it would be this bad?
Yeah, I mean, with all the injured players, kind of take it one day at a time. And so,
with all injured players, you kind of take it one day at a time. He completely dodges talking about Mixon from the get-go.
Whatever their timeline is, we kind of handle accordingly. I'd say the players that are on PUP or NFI, I mean, they're out 4 games or 4 weeks. So once we get through 4 weeks, we'll kind of evaluate it at that time.
Instead of PUP, was it something away from the facility?
No, I mean it's not my call, it's the league's call. So you turn the transactions in and they put the players in categories. So I mean that's how it's handled.
I think it's very funny that Nick in that spot right there is kind of deferring to the league about why he's on the non-football injury list. I say that because he also deferred to the league when he was asked about Jimmy Ward, and if you saw the New York Post headline, New York's Post wrote an article with the headline talking about how Jimmy Ward is accused of assault while on meth. So here's the Texans GM weighing in on that and giving a similar answer.
Did you expect, or were you surprised that Jimmy was placed on the commissioner's exempt list?
Yeah, whatever the league decides. I mean, honestly, it's their decision, so we'll deal with it accordingly. Kind of let the process play itself out. So, I mean, I don't really have anything to add beyond that.
Nick is great at filibustering, at dodging questions. I think the man would be a very good DC politician. But let's go back to the rest of that quote from Nick Caserio as he talks about Joe Mixon, asked once, twice, 3 times by Landry Locker of SNL in the locker room.
Playing this year, Mixon?
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, we'll take it one day at a time, and we'll evaluate those players after 4 weeks and kind of see where they are in their progression and then make a determination.
He looks away from Landry immediately after answering that. By the way, shout out to Landry, who I have a lot of respect for. We work together at Sports Radio 610. For those who don't know, there was a time where the Texans were 0-3 back at the beginning of the 2018 season, and Landry told me, hey, you got to ask Bill O'Brien, point blank, if he can be trusted to continue leading the team. So I asked him that question, but would I have asked it had Landry not pushed for that? I think I would have. But Landry pushing me to do it made sure that I was going to do it. So I like Landry. I think Landry's one of the few people in local media who's willing to ask tough questions. I also think he does a very professional job of asking it, which is difficult because you do want to ask it in a way where the next time you ask this person questions, they're going to answer you. They're not going to give you the side eye. They're not going to tell you to fuck off, But here is towards the end of the press conference, Landry asking a follow-up question about the process of giving information out to us, the liberal media, about injuries.
Do you view reserve NFI for Joe no different than a guy on IR designated to return?
It's the same category. Yeah, some of this is logistics and vernacular. Honestly, I think a lot of it is made more of it than it really is. So whatever the status is, they're on reserve, it's 4 games. So after 4 games, then you see where the player is. It doesn't mean they're going to come back. It just means they're available to start the 21-day window. So those players are all treated the same. That's how we view it. Maybe other teams view it differently, but that's kind of how we approach it.
That's Adam Wexler who asked that question, by the way. And Wexler was trying to get Nick Caserio to give an answer. And, I mean, that's why he worded the question the way that he worded it right there. More from, I think, Adam Wexler and Nick Caserio, and we'll get that clip of Landry asking the follow-up towards the end of the press conference today.
Here today, you're not ready to say whether he'd be available over that 7 weeks, including that 21-day window?
Yeah, all those players that are on that reserve category, every single one of them, they're out 4 weeks. So after 4 weeks, we'll see where they are.
after 4 weeks, we'll see where they are. So that is the GM of your Houston Texans. I'm going to actually skim to where this question was asked in the press conference. So give me a second here as I pull it up, because I thought I had it cut and ready to go. But sadly, I do not, Sadly. Sometimes it do be like that. Sometimes it do be like that. But here is Nick Caserio being asked about the process of giving information out to the liberal media by Landry Locker here. Make sure the volume's up.
I'm in the position that I'm in, then that's my commitment to him and to the organization.
So you basically saying y'all have an arm wrestle here because you alluded.
No, he'll beat my ass. Like we work out together, but he's moving more weight than I am. So, but yeah, he can go out there and probably still make a tackle if he had to.
From an organizational perspective, like handling injuries and information and stuff like that, what is the approach that you and D'Amico take when it comes to injury information and players and whatnot?
Yeah, protect the players. So, again, I mean, it's not public information. So we're trying to do, again, because here's what's happened with injuries, Landry, all right? Everybody tries to make an extrapolation about when are they ready, what are they doing.
Showing a little attitude here, isn't he? Generalizing a little bit too, but I think he does a better job of generalizing it than D'Amico does, and you'll hear D'Amico a little bit later.
Well, you guys said it was this number of weeks, then it was early, then it was later. Like, there's no good solution. The solution is protect the players and look out for the best interest of the players. Take it one day at a time. Everybody's on a different timetable. Everybody's got a different process that they have to go through, and that's how we handle it. So, again, like, other teams may handle it differently. So we just do what we feel is in the best interest of the team and what's best for the players.
Why protect the players? How is this protecting the players, I guess, is my biggest question here. Like, specifically, what is keeping people in the dark about whatever happened to Joe Mixon? How does it protect him? Would the information be embarrassing to Joe Mixon? Would the information be embarrassing to the Houston Texans? This is what it leads to when you aren't transparent. And listen, you don't have to be transparent. You really don't. But I'm just saying that's what comes as a result of that. More from Nick Caserio in this long answer he gave Landry.
And D'Amico has said this. He was a former player, so he obviously has a pretty good lens. I just think sometimes, there's an extrapolation that tries to get made about every little detail and about what a player is going through. Look, players are dealing with a lot.
Is Joe Mixon perhaps dealing with more than just some sort of injured foot or ankle? The speculation continues, and I'm sorry to add to it, Nick. I'm just saying that's how it goes.
I would say in a lot of cases, it's very mentally fatiguing and taxing for that particular player. And who else, nobody else really knows what else they have going on top of their injury. So we're trying to be sensitive. Look, I understand you all have a job to do, and you're trying to get information. Like, we understand that. We respect that.
I appreciate that he respects that. I do want to say it's not just us that are curious about this. Not necessarily everyone, and I know sometimes people are like, oh, it's because you're a fantasy football team. Oh, it's because you're betting on something. And you know what? In some cases, that is the case. But everyone wants to know. Everyone's curious. Why are you trying so hard to protect him? Rick Hagewood says this is all up to Joe Mixon to address this issue. Well, since he's injured, he will not be made available. So he won't, And I'm sure he doesn't want to talk about it. No one wants to talk about injuries, They do suck when they happen. Like, I feel for Mixon that he's dealing with something. I'm sure he wants to be back out there. But more from Nick Caserio wrapping up with Landry Locker's question.
But we're also trying to look out for the best interest of the players because that's what we feel our responsibility is to them.
I get y'all's point of view, but
Landry asks a follow-up here. I get y'all's point of view.
If you know someone's going to be out for 2 months and you don't say anything, then doesn't the assumption kind of work the other way where people think, well, he could be back next week. He could be back next week. Does that kind of put the player in a tough spot too?
No.
Great follow-up.
No, I mean, I'd say in the situations that we're in, I mean, the NFL, PUP are our guys. I mean, they're off 4 weeks. So let's see where we are after 4 weeks, and then we'll make a determination about the progress moving forward. All right. Thanks.
He got out of there quick. Now, I'm sure the Texans PR, Omar, probably had signaled to him, yeah, this is the last question, or told everybody else that that was the last question. But that's how Nick Caserio handled questions about Joe Mixon. Not a lot of attitude there. How did D'Amico Ryans handle it? Because D'Amico Ryans, I thought, had some very pointed comments, and I don't really agree with all of D'Amico Ryans' pointed comments about that. You know, like, I get some of the rhetoric about the media and everything today, especially politics, but in sports too. I get it. But I think that D'Amico's rhetoric here was a little bit strange. Here he is at first at yesterday's press conference dodging questions about Joe Mixon, the Texans running back who was dealing with some sort of injury.
Coach, with Mixon missing so much time as far as training camp and preseason is concerned, and now we know that he'll miss a minimum of 4 games. How is he going to be able to come back and fit into this new offensive system that you all have, especially trying to work himself back into game shape?
Big Sarge asked that question, Big Sarge Sports. And just notice how polite everyone is wording these questions, too. And I truly believe that as far as the people who are on the Houston Texans beat, there's really only one guy, Aaron Wilson, who's first with information, right? He doesn't exactly have the best track record this year. I like Aaron. He's a good guy. All I'm saying is some of the things, specifically the C.J. Gardner-Johnson injury, haven't exactly gone in his favor after he reported them, you know? But Big Sarge prefaced that question in a way where you can tell it. Everyone's trying to just coax this out of D'Amico. Give us something. Hell, D'Amico said, I'm not answering that. Next question. Might be more effective than the way that he handled it, but at least for here, he talks about taking things one day at a time and then eventually tries to talk about the rest of the team.
For Joe's situation, Sarge, we just take it one day at a time. And, you know, Joe has played a lot of football. And whenever that time comes for Joe to be back and get back in the fold, it won't be anything revolutionary that he hasn't seen before or he hasn't done from the football perspective. Joe's an outstanding football player. So whenever that time comes, I feel like he'll have a very easy transition back to football.
Is your expectation that at some point this year he'll be available to you?
My expectation is for Joe, we're taking it one day at a time, and when he's ready to be back, he'll be back.
Man. So, I mean, that's how you're supposed to answer it, right? But the liberal media was not done asking D'Amico Ryans questions about whatever the hell is going on with Joe Mixon. They're not satisfied. We haven't been given something. And I get some of the comments that I see in these YouTubes of the press conferences. I'm going to read some of them. Here are some comments underneath underneath Nick Caserio's press conference on the Texans YouTube channel. Man, respect to Landry for continuing to get more injuries in their approach to handling it. I could never do this job. A guy responded to that saying he doesn't want it to be like the Astros. Another person, Mark Wayne, says, take a seat, Landry. In response, sharpshooting Batman says, always asking the real questions other reporters fear asking. Hell of a job by Landry. Landry gives me Josh Enos vibes. Enos, spell it correctly. Then a last one, Jamie Thomas says, I honestly feel like I should have Landry's media credential for this team. Bro asks questions all the time that make him sound like a plant. A plant? What the fuck are you talking about, dude? Follow me on YouTube, please. Please follow me on YouTube. So that was the comments underneath Nick Caserio's press conference. People aren't going to watch Nick Caserio's press conference with the kind of defensiveness that they would watching a D'Amico Ryans press conference because he played for the Houston Texans. And he gets very pointed in this answer that he gave to Joe Mixon, which we will play about Joe Mixon and about the way that he approaches disclosing injury information with Landry here. So we're going to play this clip. This is a 3.5-minute quote.
I know you are big on, protecting players when it comes to injuries and trying to keep things.
Pause. DJ Bieneme asked this question. Apologies. I got so many clips in this, and I forgot some of the ones that I put in there. But anyway, more from DJ Bieneme, extremely politely wording a question to Texans head coach DeMeco Ryans.
As in-house as possible. But I think with the Joe situation, it's been kind of vague a lot. And I know you're trying to protect Joe and things like that, you like to protect players. There is a flip side to where now more speculation can fester. We're kind of like the pros and cons to that, because again, like speculation festering could then lead to inaccurate thoughts and inaccurate speculation, which could and then hurt the player and hurt how he's perceived and things of that nature. So we're just kind of like that balance between being transparent, but then also not being transparent, fully transparent, to where it's speculation and things of that nature.
Yeah. He's been so combative with. Combative is a strong word. That's unfair to characterize it like that. But he's been so guarded that DJ felt the need to ask a question that took 43 seconds to get to the actual question. And he gave a lot of caveats and explanations. And that is one of the tricky things about a press conference where you're asking a coach a question. You want the coach to think you're not full of shit and that you're not an asshole and that you know what you're talking about. So DJ worded it very fairly here, and DeMeco, I guess it's not a 3.5-minute answer, but it is, doing a little math here, about like a 2-minute and 20-second answer, and we will stop and go along the way.
Everything we do for when it comes to injuries, and I don't, again, talk about the injuries much because I'm thinking about the player. Like, it's different for me. I played the game.
You say that, you're going to get everyone watching on your side, especially the people that watched you play for the Texans back in the day. More DeMeco.
So I can see all the news and media that circulates on everybody speculating. Well, it's not us speculating. It's everybody who's writing the stories are speculating. So it's more so of let's not speculate if you don't know the true information.
Pause. That's understandable, but you're asking people not to speculate. And people speculate all the time, you know? People speculate about everything. And this is a Pro Bowl caliber running back who's injured. And he's going to be out for at least the first 4 weeks of the season. Do we just act like he's dead? Do we not acknowledge his existence? I mean, now you're relying on Nick Chubb, who might not be the same guy anymore. And you're relying on a rookie in Woody Marks, and you're relying on a guy in Damian Pierce who hasn't been able to figure it out the last 2 seasons in Bobby Slowick's scheme. You're asking a lot out of these guys. Because Joe Mixon's out, and we don't know why he's out. And I get it, like, oh, well, don't speculate. It's hard to ask an entire fan base not to do that. And we're the people that do get to ask DeMeco these questions, and he is obligated by the CBA to answer these questions. I don't want to sound like Big J Journo asshole here, you know? Like, I get protecting the players. But I do think that he would have been better served by just saying, look, we're looking to do what's in the best interest of the team. Boom. You know, I think this answer, which continues, I don't think it's going to help people see things from his perspective. And I think more and more people are going to wonder, like, what the hell's going on with Joe Mixon? More from Texans head coach DeMeco Ryans.
And why is everybody so quick to find some story on a player when he's dealing with whatever he's dealing with? That's his personal information. I don't think anybody would speculate on, the people who are writing the story wouldn't speculate on your medical situation, because would that be fair? No, it wouldn't be. So
false equivalence. If you're out of work for a long enough time, your coworkers are going to speculate. They're going to wonder what happened. It's a natural phenomenon, especially if somebody has to pick up your shift. They're probably going to fucking hate you. If we're going to make an apt comparison here, it's like going to see a play and the lead's out and the stand-in is stepping in, and they usually announce that before a play begins, or a musical. Well, if that person's out for a long period of time, you do start to wonder, wait, is this person getting fired? Is he getting replaced? Speculation always happens, and I think comparing it to like people asking about our status, it's a little bit different. People just don't give a shit about us, you know? They give a shit about these players. I understand he's going to keep on going to saying, hey, we're here to protect the players. But here's more D'Amico Ryans and a very long answer that he gave about his approach to disclosing injury information for his Houston Texans.
So it's all out of respect to the players and the men who put the work in the locker room to grind and what they put their bodies through to be on the fields. Like, that's always the forefront of my thoughts. Everybody really doesn't care about our players in that manner. Everybody kind of just wants to write a story.
This is where he loses me. This is generalizing everybody that covers the team. And I would say that as far as markets go, I do think that this is a market where the people who cover the team feel like they have good relationships with the players. Perhaps at times too good of a relationship with the players. I think that the people that cover the Texans care about these guys. Everybody doesn't care about our players in that manner. Everyone just wants to write a story. That is extreme generalizing, you know? Extreme generalizing. He continues, and this too. Like, I'm sorry. I do not agree with anything he's saying here.
And now, in the day and age where we are with everybody wants to be first with a story.
How is anyone going to be first here? It's a press conference. We're asking questions. Everyone's there. No one's going to be first. Everyone's curious. Everyone wants to know. And he brings this up a little bit later in the press conference. That's not what this is about. That's not why people are looking for it. But it's a good way. If you generalize the people who cover the team, the way that he's doing it, people are going to agree with him when he says it. They just are. Until maybe later on in the season if the team is not doing so well. Everyone loves D'Amico now. They should. He's done a hell of a job in these first two seasons, turning the program around from where it was. And, of course, he played for this team, and he was a really good player for this team. So I get why people are going to be on D'Amico's side. But people are just asking why Joe Mixon's out. Is he going to be out forever? That's all. More D'Amico Ryans.
There's no repercussions for people writing inaccurate stories
Yes, there are. You would get fired. You could be sued for libel, theoretically, if they can prove actual malice.
About players. You can just put something out, and you don't really know the information. It's not true, but nothing happens. You just, take it down. So where...
No, D'Amico, you get fired for that. We're very replaceable. Artificial intelligence can do our fucking jobs now, you know? Artificial intelligence. Robots can do this shit. Robots. We're just poor middlemen. Like, we're barely making dick for money. You know? If we fuck up, if we step on somebody's toes, we're out. I remember I got yelled at once for talking about how talking about how Whitney Merciless made a couple of awesome plays in Texans practice, and Bill O'Brien cussed him out. He said, like, fuck off, Whit. So I actually posted this on X. I got yelled at by my boss, and I got fired a couple of days later at 610. Cause and effect, I don't know. I think it might have been more the last straw. They had told me they were moving me off the air, which I thought was bullshit, especially listening to some of the shows that are on over there. But whatever, that's fine. I'm not over it at all, as you can tell. I need to get over it. But no, there are repercussions for this. I've experienced them in a way. Getting yelled at by a guy who doesn't know programming or good radio, I mean, that pissed me off. I still think about that from time to time. Especially because we're cool, I guess. But anyway, enough about me. More from D'Amico Ryans, head coach of the Houston Texans.
Is the old school reporting where people used to fact find, take time, really dig and find like the true accurate information on players.
But we're talking about an injury here, D'Amico, and the access to players is a lot more limited than it used to be. So, like, how are you going to get that information? Are you going to steal their medical records and stuff? Like, that's sort of like what you're challenging people to do here. Like, where is the old school reporting? Well, you need to get a source. The Texans are not a leaky ship. So, hey, man, that's not how it is. Where's the old school reporting? What, I got to put on like a Sherlock Holmes hat or a Kangol cap? Start asking people in like alleyways, find my deep throat. He generalizes to such a degree here, and it honestly annoyed me.
That doesn't happen anymore, right? Everybody wants to get, I get it. It's the microwave society. Everybody wants it quick. Everybody wants it now, and that leads to inaccurate information.
But there's no fucking information right now, D'Amico. Like, there's none. There's none. None.
I would just say that's Joe's business.
You know what he could have done? It's in the best interest of the team. We're going to keep that private. It's Joe's business. Boom. Instead of a 2.5 minute answer. More from D'Amico. We're wrapping up soon. Don't worry.
Whoever's business, and don't talk about it. Let him be at peace. Let him do what he has to do to
Don't talk about it. Let him be at peace. I mean, listen, that's tough to do, man. We live in the United States of America. Freedom of speech.
Cover and get back right to play the game that he sacrificed his body, time for. All these guys do that. So the speculation, it isn't from our end. It's from everybody else who wants to be first. And I get it. It's the clickbait. I want to be first. I reported it first, so I'm the best.
I mean, that's bullshit. It just is. It's just bullshit. It's from everybody who wants to be first. It's the clickbait. I reported it first, so I'm the best. No, if they don't have Joe Mixon, how good are they going to do this season? We want to know what happened. We want to know if he screwed up. We want to know if the Texans screwed up. I get that you're protecting the players here, but the generalization that D'Amico does in this is a turnoff to me. Painting everyone with a broad brush here. Especially considering how polite people are when they ask him questions at these press conferences. And that's not to say that things are going to change. And we're all going to forget about this story soon, especially if Joe Mixon's back on the field sooner than we think, after the first 4 weeks of the year. But I think this broad brush painting by D'Amico, as far as pointing at the media, I think it's Trump-esque, to be perfectly honest. You have fake news, you know, it feels that way to me specifically. More from D'Amico.
Well, how is that helping our players? It's not, and it's inaccurate. And what happens to you when you put out an inaccurate story?
Who has put out an inaccurate story about the Texans? Oh, wait, shit. There actually is a guy. There actually is a guy. You know, I wonder what would happen if Aaron Wilson had actually not put out anything about C.J. Gardner-Johnson. But again, this was happening before the reporting of the C.J. Gardner-Johnson injury, and it's been happening after the reporting of the C.J. Gardner-Johnson injury, you know?
Nothing. So
I also wonder, like, how much would that have really hurt C.J. Gardner-Johnson? Like, that report being wrong. Like, oh, no, it hurt him. No, I think people look at Aaron Wilson with a little bit of a side eye now.
Who's the benefit from this? Our players aren't benefiting from it. Joe isn't benefiting from it.
That is a fair reason to not share any information. And if maybe you had said that instead of generalizing local media with a broad brush, I wouldn't be stopping and going along the way Mystery Science Theater 3000 style.
So what are we talking about here?
An injured running back that we don't know what happened to him. That was a Pro Bowler last season, and the only reason the Texans running game was good because the offensive line in front of him sucked, and he had to do everything that he could on his own. That is what we were talking about. We don't know why he's hurt. That's why we're doing it.
Right. So for me, it's always about protecting our players because I truly care about our players.
Okay. I think you could have answered that a lot more succinctly without painting everybody that's trying to get to the bottom of this as people who want to be first. And I do think that there will be some speculation as a result of this, but I did say, hey, look, it seems like a lot of people agree with D'Amico here. Here's some comments underneath this on the Texans live stream YouTube channel. You got Jay Cephas saying, D'Amico's response to the media is on point. Media's gotten out of control with putting stuff out there that's inaccurate. But what's the example locally? Oh, wait, shit. It's CJ Gardner-Johnson and Aaron Wilson. People want to get upset with coaches not providing injury information. It's their business. Find someone else on your fantasy football league and move on. Like, it's funny some of these people are commenting as if they're on the team. Much respect to D'Amico and his response towards the media and the way they report these days. But you're painting with a broad brush, and you're not necessarily talking about the entirety of the people covering the Houston Texans. D'Amico Ryans is the ideal players coach. I agree with that. 1203 points at Aaron Wilson. Another person comments, fans wouldn't speculate on player injuries if you were transparent. I agree. Players, when they're not available, fans want to know why. JC keeps on going, Cody, I hope you got the response you're looking for because you definitely had your opinion on your channel about it. I think I need to look at that. Someone brings up HIPAA. Violation of this can be a criminal offense and is a civil offense, meaning I can sue the hell out of you. It only applies to healthcare professionals. But Anyway, I mean, whatever. No big deal, right? Joe Mixon's out. We don't know why he's out. Should we speculate? I mean, we could speculate. He has left the door open for speculation. D'Amico Ryans has. Let's speculate together. Hang on. I have a hat for such occasions. Let's speculate together. Paul, how many tinfoil hats do you have? A lot. It's not that hard to make them. Especially when you have a very large forehead. Like the forehead really holds it down. It's starting to go off. So, someone tipped me to this in the middle of my radio show today. Hold on to your tinfoil hats. We do a segment every single Thursday on my radio show, which you can hear from noon to 3 on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5. And somebody pointed something out that we are going to look at together. If you go to the NFL's website, nflshop.com, and you look up Houston Texans jerseys, if you take a look, and we're going to go through it right now, do you notice something? We're showing all three rows. If you're watching along on YouTube or Twitch or Facebook or X, you can sort of see it on Instagram as we scroll through. But CJ Stroud jerseys, custom jerseys, Nico Collins jerseys, Derek Stingley jerseys, more CJ Stroud jerseys, some throwbacks. A Stephon Diggs jersey. Interesting, the Stephon Diggs jersey that normally goes for $129.99 here is going for $59.99. Scrolling through. Another Stephon Diggs jersey. Henry To'oTo'o jerseys popped up. Has anyone seen Joe Mixon's jersey yet? There's a Nick Chubb jersey right there. We are almost to the bottom of page 1. You could buy a D'Amico Ryans jersey. Tank Dell's jersey's there. Not on clearance. Honestly, it should be on clearance. He's not going to play this season. Jalen Petrie jerseys. Kamari Lassiter jerseys. Interesting. A Laramie Tunsil jersey also available for $59.99. Let's keep going. Because on the first page at NFLshop.com, I did not see one Joe Mixon jersey. You can get a Ladarius Henderson Texans jersey. You fucking serious? You can get a John Mechie Texans jersey for $51.99, a little cheaper than your Stephon Diggs jersey, a little cheaper than some of the other ones. You can get an Andrew Beck Texans jersey, Kaimi Fairbairn, mom number 1 jersey. Retired Andre Johnson women's jersey, Derek Stingley, Nick Chubb, Will Anderson, Jarrett Patterson, Brevin Jordan, Xavier Hutchinson, Ed Ingram, Darrell Taylor, Cade Stover. Ooh, a camouflage CJ Stroud jersey. By the way, have we seen one Joe Mixon jersey to this point? Kalen Bullock, Justin Watson. He has jerseys. He barely made the team. More Laramie Tunsil, Christian Harris, Miles Bryant. It's still full price. It's on the practice squad. Cam Robinson. Christian Kirk. It took a while to get to Christian Kirk. Troy Pride. Dieter Iceland. I've never heard of this fucker. Good for him. You can buy his jersey online. A throwback Damian Pierce jersey. It's $174 for some reason. Aziz Al-Shair. Dalton Keene. Full price. Jerome Carvin. A Bride jersey. Mario Edwards. Khalil Davis. British Brooks. Braxton Berrios. Did someone say Mixon was on page 2? Hang on a second. Was he at the top? Because someone said that you couldn't get Joe Mixon's jersey at all. And I remember looking on the website. I could not find it. Scrolling up. There it is. Okay, at the very top. Oh, interesting. It's a Joe Mixon women's jersey. Now, who the fuck's going to buy that? I'm just asking the question. Who's going to buy that? So, Joe Mixon women's jersey. Okay. But it is available. But we have not seen a Joe Mixon men's jersey. Trust me, I'm getting to the point eventually. We're just going to keep on scrolling through. Miles Bryant. Jake Hansen. What else do we have here? Shaq Mason. Braxton Berrios. Casey Toohill. Tim Settle. Austin Deculus, who I think got traded. That's full price. Dare Agunbowale. Davis Mills. Darrell Taylor. Jalen Thomas. Miles Bryant. Justin Watson. Killian Zierer. Some of these people I haven't heard of. Trenton Brown. His name is Trent Brown, I thought. He's not on the active roster anymore. Oh, Jimmy Ward. Well, hey, at least his jersey is not discounted. Huh. Interesting. Where is Joe Mixon? We're just speculating. Here. There's a Joe Mixon female jersey available for full price. There's a lot of other guys who aren't on the team anymore. So, again, we're just speculating. And I have a tinfoil hat on here. I'm continuing to scroll through. Where's Joe? Where is Joe? Huh. I just can't seem to find Joe Mixon. What is happening? What is going on? You can buy Deshaun Watson jerseys. By the way, the fact that they're charging anything for these Deshaun Watson jerseys is crazy. Also, that a women's Deshaun Watson jersey is, okay, it is cheaper. Interesting. Okay, so we've seen one Joe Mixon jersey. We're gonna look up Joe Mixon jersey here. Oh, interesting. Joe Mixon jerseys are on clearance. Huh. I'm going to make my Windhorse face. Now, why is that? Why is Joe Mixon's jersey on clearance and the only jersey that you can buy that's Joe Mixon full price is a woman's jersey, which is a little weird. History and all. Why is that? I'm just asking the question. Because I don't know what the fuck happened to Joe Mixon. I don't know if he suffered an injury that was his fault off the football field, if it was an injury that he suffered while trying to get ready for the season. I don't know if it was some sort of, as Javi Goodtimes on Instagram points out, Hunter Pence falling through a patio glass door, or some other weird baseball injury. Carlos Correa getting hurt while getting a massage. I don't know what happened. I would like to know what happened, because once we know what happened, I can move on. But I'm like a cat. I'm so damn curious. And I really need to know what happened. And I would like to know how long he's going to be out. And since I don't know, when I go to the Houston Texans website and I see that Joe Mixon's jersey is only available in the home edition and it's discounted for $95.99 for some reason, I'm just going to have a tinfoil hat on my head and look up to the heavens and wonder, what's going on with Joe? So there you go. I did want to talk about the Micah Parsons trade before I hit the road. For those who don't know, the Cowboys actually traded Micah Parsons to the Packers today. In exchange, the Cowboys got 3-time Pro Bowl defensive tackle Kenny Clark and 2 first-round picks each of the next 2 seasons. He then signed a 4-year, $188 million deal with the Packers that includes $120 million fully guaranteed at signing, $136 in total guarantees, making him the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. I bet Will Anderson noticed. For the Texans, I bet a lot of other players noticed. So, look. I don't know what Jerry Jones and the Cowboys had to say about this at their press conference. I'm going to check out what they had to say afterwards. I'm uninterested in what they had to say about this trade. You should be too. You can't do something like this. You just can't. When you find a player as special as Parsons, you got to keep him. And while I'm not going to go so far as to say he's J.J. Watt level or Aaron Donald level or Lawrence Taylor level or any of the other great defenders of all time, Reggie White level, there's no denying he's one of the best defensive players in the game. And he makes the Cowboys worse in the short term and in the long term. Because the Packers are going to be good if they have Micah Parsons aboard. They have a competent quarterback. They play in a tough division, that's for sure. The NFC North last season was a battle. The Lions had a ton of wins. The Vikings had a ton of wins. I think it was 29 regular season wins between the two. The Bears, at the very least, have potential with Caleb Williams. But you bring Micah Parsons onto a team that last season we saw that defense go up against the Texans. That's a good defense. At least I thought it was a good defense. It's an offense with pieces that are certainly good as well. How do the Cowboys get better from this? Because the picks that they're going to get from the Packers are going to be late first-round picks. They'll have 2 first-round picks, and if they really stink, hey, maybe they have a chance at getting that next quarterback to replace Dak Prescott. But, I mean, you just pulled your new head coach, Brian Schottenheimer's chair out from underneath him before a game has even been played, and this is going to fucking destroy the morale of the Cowboys locker room. It will kill it. Everyone wanted Micah back, even if they get annoyed by him going on the podcasts and talking a little bit out of his tuchus from time to time. You want this guy on the field. He is an absolute game wrecker defensively. 2 first-round picks and a defensive tackle that, at least per Pro Football Focus, is coming off of a season that wasn't so good. I saw Jerry Jones afterwards in the press conference apparently was talking about how the Cowboys' run defense is going to be, and also continued, as BG points out on the YouTube, that Jerry Jones is still calling him Michael instead of Micah, which, yikes. Yikes. But this is not a good trade for the Cowboys. It just isn't. I will say this. This is going to seem like a defensive Jerry Jones. I do not want it to be that. He should have stood firm and he should have kept Parsons around. But something changed here because it did seem like at one point Micah was directly dealing with Jerry Jones. Jerry was dealing directly with Micah. And then all of a sudden, he wasn't. There were a bunch of stories about how Jerry Jones has always negotiated directly with players when it comes to giving deals like this. If you saw the Cowboys Dynasty documentary on Netflix, you saw this. Didn't always work out so well. See, as the Cowboys had won their first Super Bowl of the Jerry Jones era, first couple of weeks of the season, Emmitt Smith didn't play, and the Cowboys were awful. I think they started off 0-2. But he comes back, and the Cowboys get back to form. They get the first seed in the NFC. They go on to win back-to-back Super Bowls. which wasn't done again until the Broncos did it, and then the Patriots did it. And since then, it took until the Chiefs did it a couple of years ago to see back-to-back titles. Like, Jerry did do a very good job of helping to put that team together. Jimmy Johnson also deserves a lot of the credit. Troy Aikman, Michael Irvin, Emmitt Smith, et cetera, the Herschel Walker trade, blah, 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 blah. Everyone knows the history, right? But over that time, apparently, Jerry Jones dealt directly with players. And at some point in the negotiations with Micah Parsons, this became Jerry Jones negotiating with Parsons through David Mulugheta. It stopped being Jerry talking to Micah. It became Jerry versus the most powerful agent in the National Football League. An agent who seemed to be turned off by Jerry Jones constantly dealing directly with players. And I also imagine that the NFL Players Association might have stepped in with putting a little pressure on Micah Parsons to listen to his agent. Let his agent make this deal. Do not allow Jerry Jones to establish a precedent that other NFL owners can use. Let's use this as an opportunity to create a precedent for a player that's not getting exactly what he wants to potentially force his way out of town. And we, of course, saw this with David Mulugheta and Deshaun Watson here in Houston back in the day. My impression of why things changed from Jerry Jones being so gung-ho about keeping Micah Parsons to eventually actually trading him had to do with the hardball that David Mulugheta was playing and has been playing. And he deserves a lot of credit on that front. He wields a lot of power. And there's a part of me that wonders if a trade request actually leading to a trade, though, caveat, one of the best players in the league, if it inches us closer to a day where we got to take NFL player trade requests seriously instead of looking at the one that Terry McLaurin made or the one that Trey Hendrickson made with the Bengals and saying, yeah, that guy will be in uniform week 1. You know? Something changed here. And I think it gives Jerry Jones a little bit of benefit of the doubt. He might have found himself in a spot where Micah wasn't going to play. Mulugheta said he's going to pull a Deshaun Watson, like Watson did a couple of years ago with the Texans. Tough shit. You want to franchise tag him? He's going to sit out then too. And I bet Micah hated that. But it worked out. And this is why the guy's so damn powerful. But to look back at the actual trade itself, barring a catastrophic injury and or actually nailing these new picks or trading them for a similar talent, which is not going to happen this regular season, this is a loss for Jerry Jones and a loss for the Cowboys, especially in the short term. And there is zero spin to be taken seriously coming out of it. I've seen some spin, specifically from Peter Schrager, who I'm not the biggest fan of. I don't really get the Peter Schrager appeal. I think Schrager is very friendly, and I think that he gets access to some of the top NFL figures because of his personality. But I also think that he is someone that it might be a little too friendly with the people he talks with. Here are a couple of tweets from Peter Schrager. If you didn't see them. Fact is, Jerry Jones, being the owner and GM, gives him the ability to think long-term and not feel the pressure of his job hanging in the balance. He has been feeling the pressure of his job and the bad job he's doing and public opinion since he fired Jimmy Johnson. So let's get that out of the way first. The ability to think long-term. He's 82. What are you talking about, Peter? Another GM is immediately on the hot seat, continues Peter Schrager. If this doesn't work, Jerry, as GM, can make a decision without that factor or concern of his job. You're fucking bootlicking here. Come on, man. That is a bootlicking post. And I get that posting things like that or this, more from Peter Schrager, actual post. Were the Cowboys winning the Super Bowl this year? They could have. NFC is a little more open than the AFC. Did they win big with Micah Parsons? Jerry is rolling the dice because he didn't want to pay Micah and because he can. Go ask other GMs if they'd take 2 first-rounders, Clark, and $47 million for this guy. You'd be surprised by how many say yes. Yeah, because GMs like to make trades and like to draft their guys because they all think that they're going to get the guy. But guess what? They often don't get the guy because drafting in the first round is hard and drafting towards the back of the first round is even harder. The draft is hard. The idea that these picks are going to actually turn into something that helps the Dallas Cowboys out in the near future is far from a lock. But a lot of people, when these trades go down, these pick dorks, they get so fucking excited about it. And you're like, dude, what are you thinking you're going to get at the back of the first round from a team that has Jordan Love under center and now has Micah Parsons defensively and a pretty good defensive coordinator based off of last year? This is the kind of move that could win the Packers a Super Bowl. What does it do for the Cowboys? And why is Peter Schrager licking the boot? If you're an NFL insider, I mean, between all the agent ball washing you have to do, where you're literally copying and pasting some shit that an agent wrote for you so that you can post it. And on top of that, with this stuff, where you got to put these things out here where you're being super complimentary to some owner who just did something that everyone agrees was fucking stupid because it doesn't help him out in the short term or long term, in my opinion. You have to do that so that you continue to get access, undermine your credibility by talking out of your ass and licking that boot, kissing that ass, smoochity smooch. It's bizarre, man. Anyway. Appreciate y'all for tuning in to today's late night edition of the Gallant Says podcast. Optimally, we would do this in the morning. I might do this tomorrow morning, but since I did it so late, not sure we will get it up in time. But if you haven't already and you're watching along on YouTube, please like this video and give me a sub. It means a great deal if you do. You can also do the same on Twitch if you're a Twitcher, or follow me on X at Gallant Says. I'm on Instagram too, at Sports Gallant. Give me a follow. You can watch clips of the show. It's also on Facebook at Paul Gallant Sports. You can like my page. We're still trying to figure out the ideal time to do this daily. I would like to do it at 6 a.m. daily, but it is hard for me to get out of bed and do this before a 3-hour solo radio show where I have to prep for that too. I am just a man. I do give Landry Locker a lot of credit for being able to do the amount of streams that he's done in the past, and also he used to do a radio show and a solo show at night. I got to get on his level. Not there yet. Still trying to figure out a way to do this, a time to do this that's optimal for me, that allows me to watch all the games I need to watch. We will get there eventually, though. In the short term, this is all about me just doing this on a regular basis. Not sure how much of this from a podcast perspective I will post. We will probably post the Cowboys segment. Not sure if we will post the Texans stuff because it was so video intensive. But subscribe to the Gallant Says podcast on Apple and on Spotify. Give me a 5-star rating. Leave a nice little review, and if you roast my ass, I'll probably read it. Until either tomorrow's Gallant Says podcast, not sure if we'll do it, or tomorrow's radio show on ESPN 97.5, 92.5, 97.9 HD2, on YouTube at ESPN Houston, and on Twitch at ESPN 975, and on the brand new ESPN Houston app for Apple and Android at noon until 3 p.m. Central Time. I am merely Paul Gallant. So long, farewell, and have yourselves a wonderful rest of your Thursday night. Peace!